the Elliott Church of Natick. For those of you joining in person or online, Adam is back. Welcome back, Adam.
Thank you.
I will be on my best behavior, not like I was a rabble-rouser before or anything, but Adam, it's great to have you back. I know there's at least one announcement, and if there are other announcements, I invite those at this time.
As you know, Elliott is a support congregation for Family Promise Metro West, an agency, local agency serving families with children who are facing homelessness. So, I'm here to announce that you can grab your sneakers, your strollers, and your leashes, and join with other Elliott friends for the largest fundraiser of the year for Family Promise Metro West, and which fuels the mission to transform the lives of families with children facing homelessness across Metro West. This event will feature food, music, vendors, activities, and of course, the walk. It will begin and end at Natick High School on Sunday, April 30th. We'll all meet together at 12:45 and walk as a team. I have more details. It's easy to sign up on the Family Promise Metro West website. We have a team called Elliott Church Friends. It's pretty easy to find. There's no minimum that you need to promise you'll fundraise. Whatever you can give or you are willing to ask others to give to support your walk is appreciated. It will be in this week's e-blast and next week's Sunday announcements.
Hi, I'm here to let you know there was an announcement in this week's email. Yes, we're asking for seeds for the vegetable garden. If you have any, there's a basket in the back. You can just put them in. And I don't know if there's how long this is going for.
Until we plant.
Yeah, until we plant. So yes, it's open-ended.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Thank you. Let us pause for a moment of reflection and think about the journey that we have been on over the past few weeks, where it is leading us, and what you have noticed along the way. I invite you into this time of reflection. First hymn will be Morning Has Broken, number 38 in the gray hymnal. join together in our covenant, which you can find in your bulletin. In the love of truth and the Spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
This reading is an excerpt from To Kill a Mockingbird. I left Boo Radley at his door and turned to go home. Streetlights winked down the street all the way to town. I had never seen our neighborhood from this angle. There were Miss Maudie's and Miss Stephanie's. There was our house. I could see our porch swing. Miss Rachel's house was beyond us, plainly visible. I looked behind me. There was a long, shuttered window. I walked to it, stood in front of it, and turned around. In daylight, I thought you could see the post office corner. My father, Atticus, was right. One time he said, "You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them." Just standing on Boo Radley's porch was enough. When I returned home, I was tired and got into bed. I was nodding off as Atticus tucked me in. "We was all wrong," I said. "Mr. Radley was so nice." Most people are, Scout, when we finally see them.
Thank you. I feel like I don't need to pray now. I mean, that was itself a living prayer. Thank you very much. Let us join our hearts in the spirit of prayer. Divine One who goes by many names, God who is love, and love that is God. We come into this space, into community, giving thanks that whether we come with joys or concerns, prayers for others, celebration of new life, we come giving thanks, knowing that we need not carry any of this alone, because we are in community together and can carry together. And yet, in those moments where there are joys, concerns, prayers too deep for words, too deep down in the depths of our hearts, we give thanks that Jesus taught his disciples to pray a prayer which we say together now. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Now it is time to put a free offering to a free church. For gifts freely given to build one church community. Thank you.
reading today is from Mark chapter 4, verses 21 through 25, the parable of a lamp on a stand. Jesus said to them, "Do you bring in a lamp to put it under a bowl or a bed? Instead, don't you put it on its stand? For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. If anyone has ears to hear, let them hear." "Consider carefully what you hear," he continued. "With the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and even more. Whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them."
Thank you. Our responsive reading comes from the back of the gray hymnal, number 468, "We Need One Another." We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again.
We need one another when we are conscious of greater purpose and not alone.
We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in our hour of peace, when with encouragement and as words we stand again.
We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need,
and others are in need of us. Our second hymn is number 108 in the gray hymnal, "My Life Flows On in Endless Sun." finally arrived on Boo Radley's porch. And the view isn't so bad or even as scary as Scout believed it would be. And Boo, it turns out, isn't a menace or a specter to be feared, but is instead the story's hero. But let me back up. If you're visiting for the first time, either in person or online, we've been using the parables of Jesus and Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird to journey through Lent. Why, you might ask? The journey of Lent is an opportunity for contemplation, right? And we have used this time of contemplation to think about perspective. The running theme in Harper Lee's classic, as we heard clearly stated once again in our excerpt this morning, encourages us, the readers, to stand in the shoes of others in order to have a better, more compassionate, and empathetic understanding of what the world looks like from their perspective. And Jesus' parables also encourage us to think about life and living from different points of view. Sometimes through narratives about people, and sometimes through illustrations like the one of the lamp we heard just a moment ago. The reading from To Kill a Mockingbird came from the final 2 pages of the book. So if you are worried about spoilers, that ship has now sailed. Throughout the book, Boo Radley, or the idea of Boo Radley, moves from the periphery to center stage, to the periphery once again. And we're teased forward through the pages by the children's indirect interactions with Boo. He is a mysterious, perhaps even nefarious citizen of Macomb County, rarely seen up until these final pages, completely absent from any direct interpersonal interaction. But because of town gossip and the haunting menagerie of his dilapidated home, he's a curio to the children. Not merely different or stranger, but phantom to be feared. And frankly, it's pretty easy to fear that which we don't know. It's a reality experienced, witnessed, and perpetrated in a myriad of ways in today's complex, interwoven society where instant connection through things like social media and the internet actually help us form self-established echo chambers of disconnection from the world and even the truth. Instead, we can easily form merely perceived connections to those things we want to see and believe. We want to see and believe the truths we want to accept and propagate. However, Boo is not a menacing monster lurking behind the door of his ramshackle house. He's meek. He's timid. Perhaps agoraphobic. The truth is that the mystery of Boo Radley was conceived within that fear of the unknown, the different than, the stranger, because Boo actually saves the day. And after witnessing this, Scout walks Boo to his once scary home, scary to her, which is not so scary after all. And after he goes inside, Scout stands on Boo's porch in his shoes, in a manner of speaking, and looks out over the town from this new vantage point with a whole new perspective. Light. The metaphorical light of recognition and realization, the light bulb over the head, dawns on her. It's not unlike the light described in the parable. For whatever is hidden Jesus says, is meant to be disclosed. Whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. As Scout stands on the front, in front of the window from which Boo can see the town, she sees, in fact, not mysteriously at all, that it's her town. That Boo's neighbors are her neighbors. And that Boo was a stranger to be feared only because the accepted, albeit perceived, truth made him so. Boo was in fact another neighbor, Scout's neighbor, one more member of the community, or at least in the community, but perhaps not of the community. And part of me wonders if the final words in Jesus' parable are not so much truth-telling or prophecy, but instead a kind of commentary. Whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. Is he just actually saying that this is the unfortunate reality of what is? Unless something changes, unless a light is shown on the truth, the privileged will remain privileged and the neglected will continue to be ignored? Is he calling attention to this because it's the very thing on which light must shine in order to expose it? Now, what does any of this have to do with anything? As usual, I'm so glad I asked. So churches and congregational communities have a light to shine, right? But we so often find the comfortable, well, comforting. That we can forget to stand out on the sidewalk in the shoes that are not our own and look back at the edifice to try and see how others might perceive it. Instead of sitting inside, we might encourage ourselves and each other to go stand on the front steps and look out at the surrounding neighborhood, the world within which we exist, the larger community. Instead of sitting inside saying, our church, we might stand outside gazing out at the neighbors and saying, the church. And please don't misinterpret this as an indictment. I've experienced nothing but welcome and generosity in the churches I've visited. Instead, it's an encouragement for all communities to think about what it means to be community. Is the church really a community set apart? Or is it one part of a much larger network of communities? Yes, including other churches, other faith traditions, but also the coffee shop down the street and the firehouse next door, the neighbors we can see, as well as those whom we can't see. Because there is beauty. There's wonder in connection, in formation, in stepping out the front door onto the steps to welcome the neighbor, the stranger, the other, and to allow ourselves to be welcomed by them. Communities of all kinds were already struggling before the pandemic, but the indelible marks still unfolding in this emergent time are isolation, anxiety, grief, uncertainty. That is a troubling shadow cast over all of humanity. It's a shadow within which we are called to shine light. Like hope, acceptance, welcome, gathering, understanding, empathy. Like putting Band-Aids on malignant tumors. It seems like the fragments of the world are just kind of being duct taped together, when something so much more potent, holistic, binding is needed. For For 2,000 years, churches have done community, and it's looked different throughout that whole time. Sometimes we've gotten it right. Sometimes we've gotten it wrong. But if we've gotten it right before, then we should have hope that we can get it right again, even if that means we need to step out of our comfort zone a bit. For 2,000 years, churches have tried to be beacons of light for a better world. Sometimes we've gotten it right. Sometimes we've gotten it wrong. But if we've gotten it right before, then we should have hope that we can get it right again. But that means not fearing the uncertainty of the darkness, which should be made easier if we recognize that we and those around us, whether we know them or not, are in this together. Now, I'm going to make a really hard turn here, but I'll tie it back together, I promise. As I mentioned in previous services, I grew up on the coast of Maine. If you spend enough time wandering the coastline and learning its history, you'll learn that there are actually two different kinds of lighthouses. Many are beacons warning of rocky shorelines or dangerous isles that a passing ship might not see in stormy or foggy conditions, right? Other lighthouses, however, serve a different purpose. They signal safe harbors, sheltered ports where storms can be waited out and provisions acquired. Even when these lighthouses are automated and left empty, the port community is ready to welcome, to shelter. And for those ships damaged by shallow waters or rocky coastlines, the port community has people who are ready to go out to the ships and lend a hand. And these seafarers have often been so moved by the experience of a welcoming harbor that they return to it time and again. But more than that, they become extensions of it, of these communities in the wider world. They too gladly and compassionately take on the responsibility to help other ships in distress in a whole new way because they've experienced a certain kind of grace that they now want to share too. I remember working at the Port Clyde General Store when a distress call came over the radio. And I remember standing out on the end of the general store's wharf as the warden and the lobstermen came together to help tow a limping ship into port. And when they returned, I remember the relief on the faces of those who were disembarking that damaged ship. I wonder if congregational communities may eventually look something like this. They may become beacons, even if the building itself is largely empty. The commitment to community is what makes that difference, not only within, but without. If we shed our fear of an unknown future, which is easier to do when we band together, and we stand on Boo Radley's porch or on the keeper's house at the opening of a safe harbor on the steps, the front steps of this church, and we look out over the vista, we might recognize there is still so much to offer a broken world that's being tossed to and fro from storm after storm after storm. If we live in the light of hope, if we commit to living in that light, to shining it, the view from here stretches far into the future. Even if that future is uncertain. Because there's still so much to offer, and together we have the capacity to offer it, even if it looks a little different than it once did. Because we have 2,000 years to prove that it goes on. Certainly it takes wisdom and courage and fortitude, but the first thing it requires is the willingness to look at all that has been all that is, all that will be, with fresh perspective. Sometimes that's as simple as turning on the light and never letting it go dim. For whatever is hidden, the parable tells us, is meant to be disclosed. And whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open for communities to welcome and to be welcomed by. May it be so. And we can't finish on that note without singing We'll Build the Land, number 121 in your gray hymnal. You are each beacons, and together you shine that much brighter. So friends, go and shine a light in the world.